Did you see it?
What's that?
Did you read through it yet? The Laker?
No, but it came to me. But I know that.
Would not require a license under this
The
specific
profiles turned
section
out
of the
really
ordinance.
nice. I think it all turned out nice. Board members said nice things, and
However, it's advisable to check other
Right.
sections.
Yeah.
a little. Yeah, you never know. You never know what she's gonna write.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Worry. Trying to switch that around, but that's generally what I do.
Okay, my phone says 7, so. I'm going to call the May 21st, 2024 meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District Board to order. We have a quorum. We are called to order. Approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to make any adjustments to the agenda? And I'll start. I'd like to move this Dillig water structure permit application up to new business. Would anybody else like to make any adjustments to the agenda? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, we have an agenda. Approval of the April meeting minutes. Does anybody have any adjustments that they would like to make to the minutes from last month's meeting? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Public comments. At each of our meetings, we reserve 15 minutes for the public to come and talk about items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone here that would like to take advantage of that 15-minute public comment time? Okay, we'll move on. New business. So the first item we just moved there is this Dillig water structure permit application. And Chris, do you want to set that up for us?
Yeah. So in your packet,
Just so there you go.
in your packet, you'll see the blow-up water structure. Where the LUC approved with basically making sure that the neighbors knew about it and it was within their ADUA, and we were going to send the neighbors a letter. I know we had some discussions after our LUC meeting, and it sounds like Ordinance 5, if you read it, and Brian and Darren keep me honest, it sounds like as long as it's within the ADUA, there's not really anything we can vote on.
True. It looks like approval is only required if the structure is outside of the ADUA.
Right. Now, we do the sheriff does have to approve these structures. So it's like if the sheriff's doing it, it's good for us to have our eyes on it. But I think they did their diligence on it to actually give us what they have. But it's kind of up to us if we want to vote on it or say it's good.
Well, my understanding of the permit or of the ordinance is that the application just isn't necessary. You know, obviously appreciate you letting us know. But it looks like they can put up the structure as long as they keep it in the ADUA.
Yep.
So I don't know that the board has any action to take on the structure. Alan, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that, obviously, Chair and Board, I think the LUC took it up and recommended it as an approval on an application because of the fact that it's a structure, basically. That's my understanding. Is that fair, Chris?
Well, it was a water structure permit application, so I think we just missed we missed the whole, do we have to approve anything within the ADUA? And it sounds like with Ordinance 5, we don't.
Yeah, and I don't have an opinion one way or the other. If you want to refund the fee and say as long as you're staying within it. I didn't see how far out are the guys that are holding this thing down? I mean, are they going to exceed that at all?
No, I think it was, when we were talking about it, was like 150 feet, right? So it's well within 200 feet that you need it.
And as long as everything's confined to within that ADUA, I think there's probably not a whole lot of there. So I think as Chris brought up, if you're talking about a 20-foot lot, it's pretty hard to get one of these things in there. 20 feet of frontage, but with a 98, I think it was, that the applicant said that they had, it is self-contained, so
So no action necessary by the board.
it's a structure within their ADUA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Luke?
Mr. Chair, Board, just a quick question. Even though it's within the ADUA, it's in navigable waters of the lake. And the ADUA is not necessarily a fence line. The board historically has authorized buoys for mooring. This is out in the lake, regardless of whether it's in their ADUA or not. I would caution ceding that authority or giving up that authority to regulate this type of thing, just because it's in an ADUA.
Sherry?
I just have a question. If they don't need a permit from the White Bear Lake Conservation District, do they still need to get one from the county for their water structure permit?
I don't know about that.
They did get one from Washington County.
I know, but when things come up again, I just would like to know that, if they need to or not.
How about I make a suggestion? I'll make a motion to approve the structure permit for the Dillage water structure, or whatever we want to call it. And then I think we got to go look at Ordinance 5 in detail, just to double check all our stuff to make sure. Because in our permit, it says, required by Ordinance 5. We probably need some better verbiage in what we want with our structure permit. Indeed.
That's fair. We can review that. Buoys are distinguished because you're going to put a boat on them, right? And the sheriff's office specifically licensed those. So I think it's not like a buoy, obviously. But we should look at it and maybe table it. I don't know if I'd vote to approve it if there's a pendency there.
If it was the ladder, if we're going down what we think with the ladder in the ADUA, there's nothing to approve. They can just do it.
Yeah.
What I guess I'm saying is here, either way, they're going to be approved. We just do what we think we've always done, and then we can go look at Ordinance 5 and try to get the permit structure straightened out.
Meredith?
I think we do a similar thing for the residents at the end of the peninsula who we permit 2 swim docks.
Yeah.
And we have done that in the past, and we've done it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I think one difference with that situation is that there are 2 docks. And so it seems like we would have to approve that. And I know that we also approved the swim raft. But I wonder, just based on our understanding at the moment of Ordinance 5, if that's really what we ought to be doing.
Right. And I do like Luke's point of I don't want to lose anything yet without really reviewing Ordinance 5 yet. But I do think there's something to be looked at there.
So we could table it.
I'd like to approve it so they can move forward.
And okay, so here's a path forward, I think. We can table it so that we can do our investigation. I mean, just based on what that Part 5 ordinance says, I mean, it seems like it's pretty clear that we have to provide authorization for these things when they're outside of the ADUA. And so owner can, or the Gilligs can put in their structure because it's in line with what we would, with our ordinance, I guess. And then we can do some looking, and if we need to, if we realize that, we really should take some action and we need to adjust our ordinance, or whether our ordinance already gives us that, and then we can act on that later. But, yeah.
Brian?
Alan?
Not to confuse things with another option, but if you wanted to just table this for right now, you've got enough stuff on the agenda, just give me a chance to actually mate the two, look at the language, and hopefully take care of it within this meeting.
Sure.
I hate to make the applicant wait around, but it's better than having to bite your nails for a month, right?
Yep, and I don't want that. Okay, so are you okay with that? If we table it for now, Alan will do some digging while we're working our way through the agenda, and then we'll come back to it?
That's fair.
Okay.
So give me a minute, right? Even though the next thing is mine.
Okay, so, there There we go. Okay, we're going to skip over that Ramsey one for now, okay? And we'll go to the Ramsey County so that you can do some looking, and we'll move on with these other new business items, or?
Ramsey's fast if you want to just do it.
Yep, go ahead. Yep.
I call what we're doing.
Oh, sorry. So 2024 Ramsey County Law Enforcement Services Supplemental Contract, Alan?
Board, this is essentially the same language that we always have. This is supplemental for Ramsey County to have their summer folks patrolling the lake. It's an extra 280 hours of essentially patrol time that they wouldn't normally be on the lake. If you pay attention or if you've read the contract, paragraph 1 after all of the recitals, meaning the whereases, also talks about an additional 10 hours of contract services per month to specifically police Commercial Bay for compliance with our Commercial Bay permits. And so between those two things, those are the salient details, and otherwise the language is the same. And so based on that, and you've met the new sergeant that's in charge of the Water Patrol, Mr. Servodka, I would just, unless you have questions, I would simply recommend that we get this going and get a new season.
I'll make a motion to approve the supplemental law enforcement agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Paragraph 1 was in there last year, and pretty sure nothing happened. I don't think we have any recourse. I don't know if we have recourse. Obviously, I don't want to get into a...
Yeah. Alan?
And I can, Mr. Chair and board member, I did ask about that, of course, because by the time our new sergeant came on board, the season was effectively or functionally over. And I know Jeremy did send some folks out to look, but again, the boats had started to be pulled, and so it was hard to get an accurate number. When I asked about where the additional time went, they did say that they logged more time on the lake to make up for the fact that they didn't spend all of that time that way. And so depending on how the season goes, those 10 hours did get expended essentially just on regular services. Not like they did not do the work. They just didn't do that work pursuant to the contract. So we still got the time out of them is the point.
No, they do a good job, and thankful to have them.
I think that this year we can stay on top of that maybe a little better. You know, it's May, June, July, August, and so after May, we can, or after June, we can ask them how they spent the extra 10 hours.
Well, I'm just going to ask for reporting.
Yeah, that's good.
So by the time we got around to asking for that then last year, it was getting kind of long in the season.
Yep. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the workers' compensation plan. Mike?
This comp plan had lapsed, so Sherry very astutely got on the job there and has a new policy, which will take effect, I believe, tomorrow. And the premium is $200, and it's something as an employer we're required to provide. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the workman's compensation plan and the premium of $200.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this for a $200 premium, and that looks like it's option 1, regular premium option. And I'll just, for the sake of completeness, mention, you know, there is a deductible premium option where we could pay like $172, and there would be a $250 deductible. And my opinion is that we should just pay the $200 and not worry about that. But we have a motion and a second to do that, to accept option 1, regular premium option. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Okay, next is the fireworks. Their letter from the Fireworks Committee was in your packet of information, and we've typically donated $100 towards it. When they come for their permit, the LUC has the option of charging them the $60 or waiving it. They have waived it in the past. If they do it again, then it would be like $160 that they're benefiting by. But for now, we're just talking about a $100 donation. So I'd like to make a motion that we do donate $100 to the Fireworks Committee.
We have a motion and a second to donate $100 to the fireworks committee. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Commercial license unit fee increase, Mike?
Survey?
No, we're on new business.
License unit fees.
You want to go down to that? Okay. I've got you in between.
Oh.
Survey, commercial docks.
Oh, you must have the old one.
It's an older agenda.
So this survey, commercial docks, that was moved to unfinished business.
Got to get up to date, I guess. Sorry.
So the next item on the agenda under new business is commercial license unit fee increase.
You bet. In 2019, we raised the fee on commercial slips only. Commercial slips and moorings. We raised them from $60 to $75. Those are the slips that I'm proposing another increase on. It would be the VFW, the City of White Bear, Tallies, White Bear Docks, Mataska Park, and the Yacht Club. Those are all the commercial slips. It totals about 546 slips and or moorings. The plan back in 2019 when we raised it to $75 was in a year or two to go to $100 and then a year or two go to $125. During that time, the cost of the slips have gone up exponentially, and we haven't kept up with it at all. I propose this only on the commercial slips, not on any of the other fees for private docks, multi-user docks, easement docks, and none of that, just the commercial slip, the slips where the space is rented out. We provide them with a permit and exclusive use of the lake for their service, and they do provide a very good service. And we keep the lake clean, we treat the weeds, and we keep water patrol out there for everybody. So it's expensive, and it's kind of a user fee on the people that rent spaces from the docks. So I would like to increase that fee and keep it up to date to $125 per slip or mooring. I think it's justified. The slips have gone up double what any fees that we could ever imagine. And so I would like to make a motion that we increase from $75 to $125 the slip on commercial slips and moorings.
I'll second. So we have a motion and a second to increase the commercial license unit fee on those marinas that Mike mentioned to $125 a slip. Any discussion?
Would this be sorry.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah, would this be effective with their 2025
Correct.
applications?
Correct.
Which are
Correct.
due in October.
Correct. 2025.
Chris?
One thought, how do we want to handle this in the future? Do we want to look at it every couple of years or just?
We should. And that was the plan. But for reasons,
Yeah. Biz
We
got-
didn't.
Yeah.
so now we're back on time. And we're making up the difference. And we would have gone to $100 in a couple of years and
Yeah.
125, and here we are. Probably late on that, but 125.
But we're probably going forward, look at it
Yeah.
yearly, 2 years. What do you think? Go ahead.
But again,
Meredith.
and the increase wouldn't have to be that much. Yeah.
I would suggest we add it to that board calendar, just on a yearly basis, and some years we'll decide not to address it in whatever month we decide to look at it, and some years then just as a reminder to the board to look at that to make sure we're charging the right amount. And I will add that our cost for treating milfoil and things like that has gone up exponentially, and it is important to continue to treat the lake for things like that.
So just do a yearly fee review.
I think
I
so.
think all fees, right? Just in general.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Is there a specific month that would be best? I mean, before the budget, winter time?
I suppose November, January to have that discussion.
Yeah, well, it would take effect with the applications. Is that what you're asking?
Right, but for the annual or for the periodic review, Like, I think November or January would be a good time to raise this issue
Sure.
again.
I hadn't thought of it. Yeah, yes.
Okay.
The annual review should be prior to making any decision for the following.
Yeah, so I think if we do it in November or January, then we can make a decision in plenty of time before the budgeting and before the next year's application. And one thing I like about this motion is that it puts more of the, it costs money for us to operate, and it puts more of that burden on the people that are definitely using the lake and taking it off the, retired people that maybe live far from the lake and don't even use the lake. So I like it that way. Darren?
Yeah, I was just say, I don't know if I'm in favor of doing something. The term user fee was used. There's 546, but there's a lot more users. So the optics of this, especially from those marina owners, why are you putting it all on our clients, customers, the slip renters, as opposed to all the homeowners, the people who trailer their boats, the people who pull a kayak, canoe, whatever, you know what I mean? So it's just not sitting well. I don't have a solution, but
We're not touching homeowners.
I know, but homeowners use the lake, and if it's a user fee, they should pay.
We also pay a lot of taxes. But I like Mike's point when he brought it up, and I thought the same thing initially, but this was like the fees that they're charging keep going up, but we stay flat, right? But our cost, and it is a revenue thing where it's like, here, if they're going to increase it, I do think it's like an inflation thing. It's like we got to get some money back on it.
Are we prepared to decrease if it happens to go down?
If inflation and everything goes down, I'd be all for it, but I don't see that happening in the future. Right?
It's a pretty small percentage of their of the fee they get from the people that rent the docks. Scott?
Does anyone have an idea what the current going rate is for a slip in Commercial Bay?
Mike, do you have any idea on that?
Charges for slips?
Yeah.
City White Bear charges for a resident $2,585. In 2019, they charged around $2,000. For a non-resident, they charged $2,885. I have no idea what the VFW charges. Do you, Luke?
I do. It's a discounted rate for members only.
It's probably the best bargain on the lake because it has to be a VFW person and member, and then it's not that bad. I have no idea what Tally's charges. White Bear Docks charges up to $4,000.
All the others are over 3.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
32?
If you knew, you could do the math, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, right, under 25 divided by what number should we use?
Yeah, like-
3,000?
Yeah, say that.
Okay. That's 4.1%.
Yep.
Yeah, minuscule.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mike?
One thing I might add with this increase that we'll have a balanced budget. The cities will have a small increase in their fees, but they had a big decrease this year because we're deficit spending. We plan to deficit spend $5,500, but the Lake Use study came in a little bit higher, but it's what we wanted. And so that's another almost 6,000. So we're at 6,100 deficit spending. In the preparing the budget for Eurasian water milfoil, I put in 15,000, figuring we get a DNR grant, and it would kind of put us in there, and we just have a normal year, and maybe we'd have to deficit spend a little bit for that. Well, I missed the mark totally. We didn't get a grant. The lake was open for a long time. There was, not much snow on the ice, so the growing season for Eurasian water milfoil has been almost 12 months. So I think we're going to come up a little short on that. So we're going to deficit spend quite a bit. It's time to have a balanced budget.
Okay, so we have motion and a second. We've had some discussion. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Alan, do you have anything for us now?
Now, Mr. Chair, if you'd want to take that issue off the table that we tabled. Formally?
Okay, but it was our understanding of that Part 5, correct, or?
Well, let's take it off the table. Call the item.
Oh, sorry. So we will take the Dillig item off the table.
The license application for the structure.
License application for the structure. Thank you, Alan.
And yes, I have some supplemental. After going through Ordinance 5, I am down in Part 5, which talks about swimming floats and other temporary structures. I think we can all agree that this would constitute a temporary structure. And so under subdivision 1A, no, skip all the rest of it and just go straight to structure located in the lake. Essentially has to be authorized on the basis of it being surrounded by navigable water. So the jurisdiction is there to issue this structure a license.
Got it.
And I would do it. I mean, you're getting a recommendation to approve it, but that's where your specific authority to do that is.
And how about the first part under that, Part 5, where it talks about being in or out of the ADUA? Or am I not remembering that right?
Well, the ADUA piece matters a lot less. That's in a different part of Ordinance 5. This one has you go down to those specific things entitled swimming floats and other temporary structures. So to have them is generally authorized within the ADUA. However, they're also licensed so that they can be revoked in case they get in people's way, become a nuisance, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice.
So
Okay.
that's why you're granted that more specific authority there.
Okay. Good.
So we don't have to do permits, we just have to get the sheriff to approve it.
No, we have to approve. So if you want,
Ordinance 5 calls it as a license for this. You know, it's a structure license.
So it needs a structure permit.
so if you want to make your motion,
I would make a motion to approve the Dillage water structure permit application.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. And you're out your $60. Sorry, tried to get it back for you.
Well, can I just say, if anybody wants to come over and try it?
I'll just announce
Yeah,
that.
the microphone?
Okay, so good. Thank you, Alan, for digging into that for us. So we're on to unfinished business, VFW EAW update. So I was able to get a hold of Melissa Collins and have a discussion with her, and primarily that was about the greenhouse gas calculation. And the message is, we don't have to go too far down the rabbit hole with that. Like we don't have to think about mining the ore that made the bolts, that kind of thing. It's more, and they have a worksheet that I've been working through, and it's really about, how much gas in this situation, how much gasoline are the boats going to use, because that produces these greenhouse gases. And so we just have to make some assumptions on that item. And I talked with Luke before the meeting, and I've done a little bit of thinking about that, but I'm not super familiar with how people use boats and all that. So I'm just going to put my assumptions into an email and have the VFW look them over and let us know if they're reasonable or not. And then that should take care of that item. And then we also received the letter from
Natural heritage letter.
the natural heritage letter. There's another MCE thing that we're trying to figure out what that's about, but we're getting close. Chris.
And then once you get all it sounds like we'll get filled out in the next few weeks. What's the next process? Who does it? What's the entity that gets this next?
So what happens is that once we, the board, as the RGU, the Responsible Government Unit, once we consider all of the information to be complete, then we have 30 days to publish or to send that to the EQB monitor folks, and they publish it. There's a mandatory, once that's published, there's a mandatory 30 days for people to comment on it. And then after the 30 days, my understanding is that the DNR, or maybe the DNR will summarize any comments that were received It might be the MPCA, actually, but someone will summarize any comments that were received. We will be in a position or be responsible for coming up with responses to any comments that are raised, is my understanding from talking to Melissa. So it's really a stepwise process. I think the first, and then ultimately, Chris, if there aren't any comments, then it's up to the board to determine that it's a negative declaration, meaning that no further environmental work is required. That's my understanding.
If there are responses, does it go through the same process again, like 30 days, or is it just a rebuttal and they get it, or how does that work?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sherry.
I do have, excuse me, a step-by-step kind of a arrowed process about how it is. I can send it to the whole board.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
But I think we're getting closer. You know, I'll get these assumptions off to Luke and Mr. Sad, and just confirm from a greenhouse gas perspective, and then there are some other things that holes we need to fill, but we'll keep plugging away at it.
Yeah.
Scott?
I mean, we have spent better part of a year on this already. I am not sure when we started talking EAW, but it kind of sounds like with all these steps, it might be next year.
Yeah, I think that, it seems reasonable, considering where we are, that the whole thing can be wrapped up, I don't know, by end of summer, depending on how fast the EQB publishes it and all that. I suppose they're on a schedule. But, yeah, I think that we just received some additional information. So the reality is we couldn't really move it forward until we had all the information anyway. And the state agencies took some time to generate their reports. There was maybe a little bit of a delay in requesting those from the state agency. So that was a little bit of time. But I think the board has, I think we've reacted pretty quickly. We've been responsive.
So hopefully there's something that we would give our approval to pass it on to the next stage in the next meeting.
That would be my hope. I think it's this last document, this MCE, that we have to figure out, and I don't know if there's if that takes time or doesn't take time. We'll have to find that out.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on that? All right, moving on. Lakeview Study, Meredith.
Okay, the first boat count and access survey will be done on Monday, Memorial Day, May 27th. So that's the update on what's going on in the study. Additionally, in your packet, you'll find the two lists of survey questions from the last survey done 18 years ago. One that will be asked of boaters taking boats out at the launches, and another that will be sent to lakeshore owners. So we've been discussing these questions, and we'd like feedback from the board. And I also, when considering feedback, we hope that this lake use study is going to inform a future study on lake management, so consider that as well. So I'm wondering if anyone on the board has any feedback for us on, let's start with the boater exit surveys. It's a list of 8 questions, the lower list.
I would say send them to the slip owners. They probably have emails. I know we're going to have to beg, borrow, and steal to get an email list, but those 546 people they have valuable information. And it doesn't need to be, how was your day? Like the exit survey, it could be, how was your year, right? Just like sending it to the homeowners. How many hours did you spend on the lake?
So would you say we would treat them more like a homeowner on the lake and ask that set of questions, or?
Yeah, I just, the way it's phrased is restricted to, what did you do on the lake today?
Yes.
What did you do on the lake this year?
Mm-hmm.
Did you use your boat? Did you use it once? Did you use it 100 times? How many hours, right? Whatever information we can get, those 546 around the lake, they're users. Big time, well, they intend to be users by purchasing a $4,000 slip.
Mark?
I think that's a great point. It's a stakeholder we haven't surveyed in the past, so I think we could arrange something that works there. Their use patterns will get studied, just visually watching those boats come in and out of Commercial Bay, but not asking any opinions of
Yeah.
them. I think that's a good call.
Also ask Boat Club if
Oh.
they have data they can give us, tallies. You have 8 rentals. How many times do those rentals go out? You know, are they going out 5 times a day, 5 times a week, 5 times a month? You know, it's all good stuff for lake use.
Sorry, Scott?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so these are the questions that were asked in 2005,
Correct.
and would we be modifying them?
So we're hoping to keep some the same because they will be valuable to get trends. But I think that there are a few that maybe are outdated and we could switch to something that would give us more useful information.
Yeah, because there have been things since 2005. We went through the whole zebra mussel thing, say. And I guess one question is it affect you now? Would be a question. Also, we've allowed a lot more boats on the lake in the last 20 years. You know, there's been a dock creep in the Commercial Bay. And I think we start seeing it around the lake. And the question is, how much is that impacting their use of the lake? Having more boats. More slips, I guess. I mean, there are 2 things that, I might consider adding.
Did you get how are invasive species impacting your use of the lake?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
And so is your hope to get these finalized tonight, or is your hope that we would send any question or any suggestions to Sherry by a certain date, or what's your hope here?
So my hope was to get some feedback from you at this meeting, if possible, and then give you until Friday to give Mark and I feedback, and then we're going to work on the final questionnaire that will go to Steve.
Okay.
The questionnaire to homeowners will be sent out midsummer, likely come up with some letter from the board trying to increase response rates, some kind of plea from maybe the members in each city to their own city when it gets sent to, for me, it'd be Delwood. Mark and I would sign that letter to try to get a better response rate. So I may be asking you for help at that point as well. So some of the things that we've thought about is asking if the lake is well marked for obstacles, if anyone thinks that's useful data for us, and then asking what other lakes they visited in the last 2 weeks, just to gauge our threat for invasive species moving in if people are using lakes that have more invasives than we have. Those are 2 questions that Mark and I have thought about for the boater exit surveys. Does anyone else have anything to say on the boater exit surveys? Otherwise, we can move to the homeowner and see what you guys think there. Okay. Does anyone have any thoughts on the homeowner surveys? So this will be sent to about 100 lake shore owners.
The one thing I'll mention is item 5. Looks like it's maybe repetitive. Holiday, weekends, windy, rainy night, when rainy, windy, holidays, weekends. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have anything at the moment, but the message ultimately is that if anybody does have anything, we need to get it to Sherry by Friday. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know if targeting 100 homeowners is due to budget constraints, but I would say target all of them if you can.
Okay.
I mean,
Do you know why it was just 100 Lakeshore?
I don't know why they chose that number.
Now, I wonder how many, what the response rate is. Do you want to get 100 responses so
yeah.
you have a statistically valid sample? Then you probably have to send it out to 200.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard to create an online survey and just let people go to a QR code and respond.
I think you're doing well if you get a 10% response rate. Serious.
Yeah.
Unless you're offering some major incentives to incentivize people to respond. If you get 10%, that's considered really good.
Good feedback. So some of the questions we've talked through is asking people if they've seen any water quality or shoreline erosion issues, and then asking a question about if they have any concerns about winter use of the ice. Bring any issues to our attention. And if anyone has any other ideas, try to get to Sherry by Friday.
Is this going to be set up as like a open text entry thing? You know, like when we list all this stuff, you know, tubing, swimming, pontooning, you know, blah, blah, blah. Are these all going to be check boxes or with other? Or do you just let them do, you know, if you just do text, you don't know what you're going to get.
In the past, it was text, and there, if you read the old studies, there's just a long list of complaints and comments and things that people want to say.
That's good.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, you need that, but, yeah, okay.
Is Blue Water Science going to conduct it or run it? So if they have a Google account, I mean, you can make a really quick Google survey that's easy to respond to and get immediate information and spread it on a data sheet. Otherwise, also, if he has a bulk mail permit and you mail more than 200, the postage, I don't know what it is these days, but much less. So if you needed to do that.
Mark, do you have anything to add?
And Mark, can you make sure you speak into the microphone there?
No, I think Meredith covered most everything. Our intent is to take the feedback and do our best to word these questions carefully. The previous studies got great data, but the questions look like they were written by a committee. And so we're going to try to focus our efforts and make them well-written and cohesive as a whole, Meredith and I and Steve.
Okay, anything else on that?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so then I'll just remind the board members to get Sherry any input by Friday. All right, thank you. Okay, survey, Commercial Bay docks. We had talked about this previously. So I think that we do need to confirm that the docks in Commercial Bay are installed per the permits that we've provided to the marina owners. I think the easiest way for us to do that is to hire a survey company to go out and give us that information. There's cost associated with that. And I don't know if there's a way that we could do that on our own to take some sort of a GPS device and go out to the end of each dock and just get a location on it. But I'm not smart enough to know that stuff. And so what does the board think about all that?
I think we should take our first stab at just checking the docks ourselves, links, and I mean, I think we could find. Everything looks good right now, right? It really does to me. But I mean, I think we should take our first shot at it before we spend any money. That's my opinion.
Okay, anybody else? Mike?
If we were to enforce it, would our cursory observations be enough to enforce if they were out of compliance, or do we need a third party?
I don't know that ours would be adequate, but it depends on how robust it is. Alan?
And just to help out on that question, let's assume that Mark goes out or Chris goes out or someone goes out and actually double checks placement, length, that sort of thing. I would, if they had a problem, I would then say refer that on to investigations within our water patrol, and then a sheriff's deputy or some such can go out and confirm that, and then write that up, and then it becomes a report, an incident report, and then that would be what we'd rely on then to take some sort of action at this level. So that's your third party that basically becomes the evidence gatherer, confirmation in this case of evidence that we've taken in ourselves.
Is Water Patrol law enforcement?
Yes.
Are they going to be doing measurements?
Ramsey County Sheriff.
Are they going to be doing measurements?
That's what they're specifically
300
doing
feet?
the extra 10 hours for.
Okay.
Good.
Meredith?
Get some measurements before our next meeting in June.
Yeah, I think so. They may shoo me off, but Mike and I can go to each place and
Yeah, and
just throwing you under the bus.
yeah, and you know that by them making their application, they authorize us to enter.
And so, like, I think the good thing is we're all on good terms with everybody. I don't think they'd have a problem where it's like, let us take a peek. You can even walk it with us, and let's just do the basics.
Mark?
Yeah, I think there may be some issues someday that require survey, you know, the angle of the ADUA lines or something, but I'm in agreement with Chris that the initial attempt at inspection could be done ourselves.
Okay, so let's take that approach, and we'll leave it to the LUC. Chris?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll take it.
All right.
But I think then I'll get back to you. Then if we can't do it, then I think, okay, fine, let's just put this to bed and get the right markers where they need to be so we can always do it.
Yep.
Because that was the other thing we talked about in the previous meeting. It's like, if we can get solid markers that all the owners and all the people that look at this stuff agree on, I think that would be good too.
At the ordinary high water level.
Yeah.
Yep, right on.
I mean, we take our first shot at it and we'll see how it looks. And if there's questions and people are over, guess what? We're going to go mark it and we'll have pins put where we need to have them.
Okay, okay, good. Then we'll move on.
And Mr. Chair, I'll try to get my drone in the air and get some visuals for everyone before the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
Because we should be just about there in terms of Commercial Bay being in, right?
Yeah, I think they're basically, it looks like everybody's done.
I was out on the water on Friday and looked pretty
They're filling up.
complete.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you all. 4955 Lake Avenue dock permanency issue. Alan?
Yeah, that certainly was.
I hear a siren. Do you hear
it
a
a
siren,
vacuum?
or is that just me? Do you hear a siren?
Siren?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a
Storm siren, or?
There's
I
a
hear-
vacuum going.
Oh, thank you.
That's the Dyson.
Never mind.
Okay.
Big issue, but not a siren type issue.
So, Alan, sorry.
As far as the dock permanency issue, I've talked to Mr. Peranto about it, and from my observations and from the sheriff, it's just simply not. What the structure is that's there can be removed, at least as it relates to what's beyond ordinary high water. And so I would just simply determine it, unless Mike tells me something different, that it's not a permanent structure.
What maybe this is a question. What's the complaint? Because, like, I look at the pictures, and I agree on the dock. Totally agree. But then there's some posts there that are along the property line itself. Like, he put those in for, no trespassing or whatever. Was that the complaint on those, or everything? Or
I think it was more of an all-encompassing, but I mean, the whole idea is that it was a permanent structure going out into the lake.
Yeah.
So we don't have much control over what goes down to the lake, of course. So I think
how
it
do you
was
feel
really
about
more of a general one.
Those posts that are along the property line there, like into the, because we were just like, we'll get onto it with the city fence. It's like, here, that's not a dock. They're posts for like almost a fence. Because we've said we can't put those types of structures into the lake bed itself.
These are the posts you're talking about here.
Right. I'm fine with the dock. If the guy's creative enough to yank those posts out every year, like he did last year, I'm fine with it. But I'm just curious on the ones that are there on the property line, or what people had on thoughts on that, or if it was even part of the complaint.
Well, we don't have any jurisdiction over it either.
Above the ordinary high water level, is that what you're saying?
That's got to be below.
I don't know.
In the water.
Some of them look like they probably are.
If those two are removable, then it would be technically kind of part of the same structure, but just a bunch of posts there in and of themselves, I don't know as we would have a problem with generally. But again,
Then let me take it a step further then. Are we going to, like when we talk about the city dog fence that's in the water and in below the ordinary high water mark, what's our decision on that? And I don't want to get too far ahead, but maybe it answers both.
well, I don't think we've made a decision yet. I think we're still waiting on the city to get back to us.
Okay, I'll show
All I
it
can
then.
tell you as far as, that's a
Talk
fence.
about that next.
Yeah, no, so I'll sell, maybe we answer it later. I'm fine with that.
It's a very different thing than some posts.
Right, but that's not part of the dock structure, I would say.
I would agree with you.
Like,
But again, I don't know how long they've been there. I don't know what their
No,
purpose
those
is
are
or
new.
anything.
Those are brand new. I know for sure. I've been
Yeah.
down there too many times with Mark Christensen, where I get what he's doing, right? He wants people to know, and he can tap a no trespassing sign, I guess.
Where the
into it. We
line
just
is,
say,
yeah.
It's got to be removed by spring, but I know why you put them in there, right?
Yeah, it might be an obstacle if there was actually water in there, but I don't know.
If there was another complaint specifically on that, or if it was just everything again.
I don't think the complaint we got was about that.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it was really more about the permanency of the dock structure.
All right.
So, and of course, that whole area is a lot more clean than it was, we'll say, last year at this time, because they did a lot of work to clean up the stuff that was actually seemingly placed there to be more of a barrier. So the stumps and all the other debris that was there.
Yeah, he did clean it up.
So without more, I don't know how we could call it a permanent structure, put it that way.
So does the board have any action to take on this item at the moment?
Once we get the reaction about the dog fence, I do think that it's important to write back to the complainant and address what those findings are. And so I don't know what the city or Rice Creek is going to say about that dog fence, the dog park fence. So the DNR has essentially come back and said we're fine with it.
And so, yeah, so the city and the
So I would
the
think
watershed
that
district.
Rice Creek would want to see at least a permit, and most cities actually want no development basically within 50 feet of the lake, because that's what Rice Creek insists on. So we'll see what comes back.
Okay, well, let's, should we move to the city dog fence and have that discussion? And because then maybe it makes some difference in how we take care of the 4955 Lake Avenue item?
Up to you.
Okay, so let's move to city dog park fence. I guess that's me. So I think we have heard from everybody. So DNR says that they don't have an issue with it. City of White Bear Lake, they seem to be within their zoning code, based on what the city told us. And then the Rice Creek watershed, their regulatory rules do not extend below the ordinary high water. This would be DNR jurisdiction. We don't have a district-wide setback requirement, but there are portions of the district. Yeah, okay. So they don't have at least this is what they told Sherry. So, I mean, my understanding after having these people look at it is that the way that the city installed that fence, it makes the DNR happy, and they coordinated with the DNR prior to installing the fence. So the DNR doesn't have any issues with it. Looks like Rice Creek doesn't have any, they feel they don't have necessarily any jurisdiction over it. So they don't have an issue with it, I guess. And the city of White Bear, at least what they told us is, water-oriented structure except stairways, fences. So basically a fence is accepted or it is not included in their zoning code that would deal with this. That's what the city's told us. So, yeah, Chris.
But it's a permanent structure into the water. It's a fence. You can't put fences in lakes.
So the DNR, what they told us is that because it is, you can take it apart with hand tools, I think is what they said. They don't consider it to be permanent.
Sure, but having fences, even here, it's in the water. The sense of weird precedent when you get into these situations with people and their boundaries, where if we start letting people put fences between their property lines to start blocking each other, we are going to have a hornet's nest.
And I think that there may be an opportunity for the board, if we're interested, to improve our rules, our ordinances to deal with something like this.
I think we should. To put it to bed, because this shouldn't happen. You shouldn't have this thing where it's blocking people from even, on the shoreline there. And I get what they want to do, but go find a different spot for your dog park. I'm all for that. But I do think we should tighten up our ordinances. If we're going to leave this, we should figure out how we change our ordinance to take care of it.
Yeah, well, I think, Mark?
seems like it goes back to the same temporary structures ordinance we were looking at before. You know, for the swimming structure, it seems like it would need a permit, a license. No ski jumps, slalom courses,
Yeah,
diving
this is
towers, or other
temporary.
structures surrounded by navigable water, whether floating or on posts, shall be located anywhere in the lake without
Yeah.
being authorized.
Certainly you're not in trouble when you don't have navigable water around the fence, right?
The floating portion certainly extends into the.
If it's a fence.
There's a second,
Like the buoy kind
the
of
buoy
thing.
The
portion.
red and white thing that goes.
There as a raft, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we can certainly look at it. I'm with Chris. I think it's a terrible look to be encouraging fences going all the way from terrestrial down into the water. Because, I mean, what you're suggesting to everyone on the lake that has a lot is go ahead.
And I look at these people that we've had battles with property lines, like you'll see them put that fence all the way out in the water, and I don't think we should encourage that. Right?
So we
It's
have,
messy.
yeah, so I think at least the way it looks to me is that if we want to take play some role in this fence, that we would have to adjust our ordinance to do that. And Mark, I know you just made a point that maybe would imply that we already have that. But I don't know. Alan, do you have an opinion on that?
No.
Okay.
Not as we sit here now, but I think if this is going to be something that might trend, we should do something.
Meredith?
So,
Alan, what could we regulate? Could we make a rule that the fence could not go below the ordinary high water mark on White Bear?
I would.
What's within our jurisdiction to regulate?
I would just simply say no barriers,
Yep.
no barriers extending from property lines to, I guess you could call it enforcing or at least demarcating your ADUA, because that's what it is, right? Because that's what we say. Lot lines go out and that defines your ADUA, and so we just say you will not define them by fencing or anything that's any permanent or temporary structure.
Mark?
Is this somewhat different in that the property on both sides is city property? And they're just dividing their own property for different uses? I mean, there might be a cause for issuing a permit for this particular use.
Yeah.
But
Did they say why they put it up? Was it just to keep the dogs there, or what did they say? Or did
It
they
was
just,
to contain the dogs in the
That's
dog
my
park.
understanding.
Yeah, it's been a big issue for the city. This particular dog park, it's been quite
Oh, sure.
contentious.
Sure.
So it actually solves or at least it addresses an actual problem.
Right. Okay, so we,
If you wanted to make governmental entities immune from it, you could, there are ways to craft it so that you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about something like that for municipal use and that sort of thing. But I do think it's a good idea to not encourage this as a habit on the lake.
Mark?
my opinion, just from my read, is that it should require a application and a permit from us.
If that's the response we want to give back to the city, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, well, so here's what I would like to do, is I'd like to just table it and give Alan some time to look through our ordinance and come up with an opinion for us before we respond to the city. Are you okay with
Fair
that?
enough.
Okay. Good? Mike? Yeah,
Even if you table it?
into your microphone, yeah.
I've seen this fence, actually, more the floats, the fences barely goes in the water hardly. In use in the last few days as part of a walk, take a long walk. The dogs apparently, they seem to be unleashed when they're in the water, and they're throwing balls and they chase them out and all that. And then there's small children on the other side playing, and I think that this barrier is needed. I think it's a good thing, so I vote for it. If they needed a permit, I'd certainly endorse it and go for it. But seeing it in use, it definitely is a need that they identified and addressed.
Yeah, and I haven't walked it to see actually in practice, so there might be a practical reason for doing what they did.
So the path forward is Alan's going to review the ordinance and give us an opinion on what authority we have based on our existing ordinances. And if Alan comes back with a yes, you have authority, and this does require a permit, or board should require a permit, then we can let Sherry know. Sherry can communicate with the city and ask them to submit a permit application for the structure.
That's fair.
Does that make sense?
And rather than having it come back, could we do all that between now and the next meeting?
That's what I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no
Everybody
further
okay with
direction
that?
needed then. No further direction needed then.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion on that item? Okay, we're moving on. Okay, so does that inform anything that we're going to do with the 4955 Lake Avenue?
And with both, then we can get back to the original complaint and say we did this and this.
Okay. So that one we're on hold with as well until we get this done.
Yeah, because it was a combined complaint.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on then. Reports, action items, executive committee. The executive committee met. We discussed doing some board training, and the board training we would try, or at the moment it's planned for August, since the LUC has typically a very light agenda at that time of year. We would do the board training at 6 o'clock, or 6:10, whatever. Something like that, and Alan will provide the board training, and it'll be, document retention, open meeting laws, those kinds of things that, as board members, we should be familiar with. So we talked about that. We talked about Commercial Bay permits, and I did hear back from the DNR. They're currently working on updating the Commercial Bay permits. So we'll see when those get finalized. We talked about algae testing and some other kind of miscellaneous things, lake management bid, products cost, the 4955 Lake Avenue dock that we just talked about, the dog park fence that we just talked about. And then we talked about the cost for legal prosecution of offenders, and if we ought to do something with that, and that may become a budget item. So that might be discussed there. Commercial slip fees, which we talked about, and that was about it. Oh, the St. Germain Bay sign, we also talked about that. That's moving forward. So thank you to Meredith and Mike, and I know Mark was involved at some point, so thank you for that. And that was it. Any questions?
On the DNR permit, were they taking your direction how that was going to be kind of generic and?
That's my understanding.
Okay, good, great. That's great news.
Yeah, so we'll see. And I also asked them, specifically asked them for the opportunity to review the permits before they're made public, so we can provide some input. We'll see. Okay, any questions for me on that? Okay, moving on. Lake Quality Committee, Mike.
We send a swimmer's itch letter to the municipalities. That's a policy that we approved years ago and continue to do it every year. We pay the first treatment if the cities decide if they want to treat for swimmer's itch, if they have reported cases, and that usually is their trigger. And we pay for the very first treatment in the swim areas only. If additional treatments are needed later in the year, then they would have to pay for that themselves. But in talking with Ramsey County, they test Matabidi Beach and Ramsey Beach weekly almost for E. coli and that type of thing that would cause a beach to be closed. And if there was too much itch, or if there was itch reported, that they actually said that they would treat themselves without the municipalities having to be involved. So they're well covered. I believe that they do test it that much. And so anyhow, our letter is going to go out, and we'll pay for the first treatment. And that will go out in the next few weeks, or the next week or so. Okay, lake level today is 922.37. Last month it was 922.20, and last year it was 922.87. So we're kind of in the 922 range at plus. The lake temperature today was 65 degrees. Last month it was 48, and last year at this time it was 58 degrees, so it's a lot warmer. And now in your, Sherry, did you send out a copy of the lake management bid in the packet?
We had that last month, didn't we?
Was it in there?
Sorry. Nope.
Okay, we'll have it next month then?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. What I really want to do is just approve the applicator. And it's lake management. They've taken care of us for a number of years. They provided me with prices, and we'll go over that next month. And so I'd like to make a motion that we accept lake management as our treatment for Eurasian water milfoil for the summer of 2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And so, Mike, are we approving a budget amount or just the idea that these are the people we want to do the work?
Well, we're in big trouble with the budget. I budgeted $15,000 for the treatment, thinking that we'd get a grant from the DNR, which we did not get a grant from the DNR. And then, as you heard earlier, the lake's been open. It has been a real growing season for Eurasian water milfoil. So we're kind of trying to put the areas together to see if there's new areas or just thicker areas where we had been treating. So I think we're going to come up short on our treatment dollar amount, which I will have to address next month. And so that was kind of what you were asking.
I'm wondering what we're approving with the motion.
We're approving the applicator.
And on a like a per unit cost kind of thing?
Well, if we'd had the thing in front of us, yes, but we're not approving a final dollar amount. So, and if you want, I can wait till next month to have it approved, but it's...
Or I can quickly go downstairs and make copies and come back up.
Would it be too late to wait till next month to handle all this at the same time?
Yeah.
It would be too late?
You mean you could do it right now?
No. I don't think we should do that, personally. And what I'm asking is, if we table this till June, is that too late?
Could be.
Okay.
But we can't begin the treatment without the board authorizing a certain dollar amount.
Right, but this motion doesn't authorize a dollar amount.
No.
Okay. So if we pass the motion, then we're saying, hey, we're going to use lake management to do the work for us. And then we would later get a bid from them?
We have the bid. I thought it was going to be in the packet.
I'm sorry, it didn't have a dollar amount, though, correct?
We don't have a total dollar amount, but we have a dollar amount per acre of what it would cost.
I can get it in my email here.
But I don't know how many acres yet, so.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the variable.
if we have the dollars per acre, though, that I think is what we need. Because, the total acres is whatever it's going to be.
I can give it to you.
Yeah, so maybe can you just tell us what those numbers are?
Okay. For liquid 2,4-D, and these are all at an average depth of 8 feet, and it's the maximum application. It's 4.0 parts per million, and that's the maximum that the DNR allows. So for 2,4-D, it's $506 an acre.
Okay.
For liquid triclopyr, TRICLOPYR, at 1.5 parts per million at 8 feet, it's $653 an acre. For Procellicor, PROCELLACOR, application rate at 8 feet, it's $1,617 an acre. Now, the Procellicor comes with not really, it's a guarantee, it is. It's a 3-year control guarantee for areas larger than 10 acres. Last year, we didn't have any 10-acre sites. So it's expensive, but if you get 3-year control out of it, it would be cheaper. However, I talked with Steve McComas last year because they had this on the bid last year too, and we did not try any Procelicor. He says that it does work. It takes it out. It absorbs a little faster, so it happens a little quicker. But the first year it's gone, the second year it's gone. By then, other milfoil breaks and floats around, and then other milfoil can establish itself in that area, and it can start growing in the second year and the third year. And so, yes, you get rid of what you treated, but you have new growth coming into those areas. So it's interesting. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, the DNR called a meeting, and Brian was there and myself, the DNR, a former DNR employee who represents Procelicor, and Michael Connell, who represented Lake Management. And they really tried to encourage us to try out this Procelicor, and see what it'll do on a 10-acre site, of course. It's something to think about. We won't know till we get our survey done if we have any sites like that. It is expensive. All these things are kind of up in the air, so I'm taking it just a piece at a time, putting the puzzle together. And so anyhow, those are the numbers that we're working with. We've had good luck with 2,4-D and triclopyr. Typically, I've done half the lake with 2,4-D and half with triclopyr, and then the next year switched it and had very good results. This Procelicor, I don't know if we'd really save any money in the long run or not. I have to really see what we've got. Maybe we would take, even though it's not 10 acres, maybe we'd take a smaller one and just try it out and see how good it really is.
When do we do the survey? It'll be before the next meeting, right?
Pardon me?
When do we do the survey?
Oh, we do the survey at the end. Usually it's the end of June. This year it could be a little bit earlier.
Yeah, but I
Steve
mean,
McComas.
a month from now, we won't know if the survey's not done.
Yeah.
How many acres?
Yeah.
We won't know how many acres. So what the motion, and can I offer this as a friendly amendment, that we adjust the motion just to include these unit costs for these materials? So we're approving lake management at these unit costs?
Yes.
Is that okay with the second? Who had the second?
You seconded?
Chris.
I had the second.
Chris. Is that okay with you, Chris? Yep. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve lake management at these unit costs. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. And any questions for Mike? Mike. Next, Lake Utilization Committee. That's actually Chris.
Yep. And we'll skip over the Dillage. We went through that. And then we have two things for the Magali Patel dock. So the first one is there's two people over on Park Ave, kind of on that southern part of that bay over in Matamidi side, maybe a few blocks up from Ash Street. The two residents want to put their docks together so they can get out further. So the first motion that we'll have, and I'll lay them both out and then we'll do them one at a time. The first motion would just be for the multi-user dock and multiple boats because they're just going to have 5 boats. But then the second one would be for a variance for them to go out to 400 feet. They measured the depths of where they get to the proper amount of water. They need about 36 inches for some of the boats they have. They're bigger inboard boats that they need 36 inches of water. They're roughly at 350 feet, they hit that mark. And then at 400 feet, they get to about 44 inches. So it gives them some stuff if it dips down for the end of the year. So the first motion would be to approve the Magali Patel multi-user dock permit application for their 5 boats and combining their docks.
I'll second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the combining of these two docks. Any discussion? Alan?
And I don't know if Chris hit this, I didn't hear him, but it should be mentioned that the LUC recommends that approval.
Yep.
That was unanimous.
I'm sorry, I should have brought that up. Thank you.
Okay, so LUC did approve this. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that
Okay.
passes.
And then the second part of them was their variance that they actually added. So this is the first one for the residents we're doing, so I think it's kind of proper to do the multi-user and then the variance. So the second would be the variance for, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Magali Patel variance request to get their dock length up to 400 feet.
I'll second. So we have a motion and a second to approve a variance to extend out to 400 feet. Any discussion? And I'll start. Okay. So we're kind of taking them at their word that these depths are as they state here, hey?
The good thing is Chris Weiberg did it. He's the dock installer, so I do have confidence he did it. So I know they didn't. Chris was working on it, and he's reputable, and he knows that shore. His dad has a spot down the way, and I'm pretty sure it's there. Plus, I live down the way from it, and I have the same problem. I don't have these giant boats. I don't have that. So those are the depths that you're going to see out there right now.
Any further discussion? Meredith?
I just have a question. I'm not in favor of this. I think it looks like they need this length, but I want to be consistent with residents and what we do to Commercial Bay. Did we need to give public notice on a variance to our ordinances?
We did notify the neighbors, so the neighbors know about this.
Not sufficient.
That's sufficient, even though we're breaking our own ordinances.
Breaking?
No, we're not breaking.
Because we have an ordinance on a lake that no one can go beyond 300 feet.
That's why the variance is there.
Variance from that rule, if you want to call it that.
So it's different than Commercial Bay going beyond 300 feet.
It's private versus public, yeah.
Should we have a public hearing on it, or no public hearings required?
And notification?
Well, with a variance, you certainly have to give notice to the neighbors. It doesn't have to be published in the sense that you're changing the law, but it does have to be sent out, and it was sent to the neighbors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess I haven't really looked to see if we have to have a public hearing.
Well, I want everyone to be treated fairly. So if we did it
Me
in
too.
Commercial Bay, do we need to do it for a resident as well? I just want to make sure we're doing the right things.
I assume we noticed them to come and speak if they needed to be heard,
Yes.
but not necessarily published as a public hearing in the agenda.
True.
I didn't see it published that way. And so to be belt and suspenders, we should probably hold off and do that. Hate to do it that way, but
I think that's a lot of work for Sherry, myself, and others to and people want to get their docks in too, where it's like,
I don't disagree,
all our applications have been notify the neighbors.
which we did do.
Told them both about the multi-use and the variance. We've informed them.
And I get that too.
The difference being this is a variance outside of our ordinance, right?
And it's a variance as opposed to just a permit.
Right.
But isn't the variance there to go, when we have something that's outside our ordinance, that's the purpose of the variance?
It's not the purpose of the variance, it's the requirement when you're actually granting a variance
I get it.
versus a permit.
It's a requirement, so that's what okay. Why do we need a public hearing?
Well, it needs to be noticed that the public would be invited to speak. And so it's I get that it's a very subtle difference because the only people that care have been told about it and could come here and talk, but it's not on the agenda with a public hearing notice.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Chris. I'm just bringing this up because I think that it's important we treat everyone equally on the lake. But I'm fine with this coming to a vote tonight. I just think that we need to make an effort to treat everyone equally. If we're going to break 300 feet and we're going to make Commercial Bay do one thing, I think we should have.
It seems like we need to have the public hearing.
At least notice it and allow that opportunity.
Sure. But that would
And I
be
wouldn't be as much of a stickler on this except for the fact that this is probably not the first one we're going to hear just
Right.
because of the nature of the lake this year. So people are going to, this is proactive, right? Saying let us go out because we think the water's going to go down and our big boats are going to drag. So we want to go out to 400
It's not proactive. They know it won't work with what they have.
at some point.
No. At 350 feet, they get the depth they need. That's the starting point. So that's already
Right.
past our 300. So it's over.
So they can't
that's
do
why
it with
they're-
300.
They can't get it at 300.
I don't know if you conditionally permit it and say, you know what, unless public comment comes in next month, something like that. We don't like to conditionally permit.
Should I amend my motion on that? Would that help with that if I amended that? Or?
Just a moment. So the idea would be we'd conditionally approve it until we have the public hearing, and then we'd have the public hearing in June, and assuming that goes well, then we would remove the conditional approval.
That's what I would do, just because of the nature of the lake this year.
Yep.
I would hate to skip a step when, again, people are going to be coming in, I would expect, if the summer goes the way they're predicting. And
Right.
so, yeah, we're going to have to be consistent.
Meredith?
Yeah, I'm all for access to the lake. I want them to be able to use their dock. I don't want to create any impediment. I just want to make sure everyone's treated fairly.
So I think that if Chris changes his motion to making a conditional approval until after the public hearing.
Just to allow them to set the dock out, because I get that. Because the only two people that are going to disapprove, if you will, have already been noticed and have not.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it's a pretty small chance that anybody's going to come in and bark about it.
Right.
But so is the motion and the second, are you guys okay making that a conditional approval?
I'll add to make it based on we'll conditionally approve it based on the public hearing for the next meeting.
And the second, was that?
Is you, I think.
Okay, well, I'll accept that. Okay, so Sherry?
So would I issue them a permit saying stipulation, this is only conditional until after the public hearing?
Yep.
They can proceed basically with their
right.
stuff, and if something comes up, then we deal with it.
At the public hearing in June.
Okay.
Yep.
And the
Issue anything. Just inform them that it's been conditionally approved.
So don't
pending
give
the
them a
outcome.
permit yet, just
Right.
say it in the letter. Thank you.
Well, somebody could comment and say any number of things, right? We would have to overturn our vote based on.
Right.
That's what it's
Based on.
conditional on.
Right, so
The holding of the public hearing.
yeah, so we hold the public hearing, we take public comment, and then we will have another motion, I assume, to approve without condition, and then we would vote on that motion?
Well, you're voting now to conditionally approve pending no complaints. So
Okay,
you could certainly put something on the consent saying, remove condition.
like that.
So it doesn't require further discussion, right?
No.
So since you're going to have to tee it up with the public hearing, I think you can address it at that time.
Yeah, we could just vote again.
Just take a motion to remove the condition.
Yeah, like that. Okay. Okay, Scott?
I'm just wondering, I'm looking at this satellite photo
Yep.
of all the docks, and they've identified which two would be combined. Would this stick out way beyond all the other docks because of what we're approving?
I mean,
Not a ton and this is where they did point out some of the neighbors to the north. They've already extended, it seems like. If you see the neighbor to the north recently reconfigured to extend. So some of these folks have extended, but it depends. What happens is depending upon what kind of boat they have, and these guys have some big boats. It's like some people can deal with the docks and sometimes they can't with the depth they need.
Yeah.
That's what,
because-
and the good thing is it's like 44 inches at 400 feet. Like not many people are going to be tooting their pontoon through there for a boat ride. I know I don't, for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, all of these docks have very similar water depth concerns.
And it may be in some of those situations that the boats don't require as much depth. And so, but I do think, to Alan's point, this probably isn't the first one that we're going to see that wants to extend out.
Yep. And I think if we stay consistent, get the water depths, make sure we understand why, and if we do these public hearings on top of it, we'll get in our rhythm on it.
Yep.
And we should make sure that as these come in, I get that you trust Chris, the person that you're talking about who kind of verified, but we should be very sure that we're getting those depths.
Yeah.
So that we have the rationale to grant the variance too.
I was in that part of the lake this weekend. I can confirm the depths are pretty accurate.
Okay.
I was well 100 feet past the neighbors, and it was about my belly button area. What's our role? I mean, we're responsible for the safety on the lake. This dock is 250 feet beyond the neighbors. do we want to like consider approving this? Put some sort of lighting on it? I don't know, because I know people still go around on the lake after 9 o'clock, 9:30, and skiers, they ski when the light's out or after sunrise. This will be in their way, but they shouldn't hit it. But just, I don't know. This is sticking out far.
And maybe that's something that we can discuss further at the public hearing or when we...
You're on it now, and I think it's a very good idea. I mean, we just passed an ordinance saying if you're going to leave your dock in the winter, it needs to be marked. So I would say a conditional permit that includes reflective tape on anything exceeding the ordinary distance that we allow, and a light at the end, a nav light, would make abundant sense.
I think we took lights off that, though. I think we just said reflective tape because we didn't want lights on, like...
Well, for the whole winter, I get that.
Yeah.
Something to make it visible for
reflective
the
tape
same
for
reason
sure.
that
I think you'd
Darren's-
ask for some of that stuff.
Okay, so I think then the motion needs to be amended to include that.
Reflective tape?
Yep, or some sort of marking.
Something that makes it visible beyond where it would normally be permitted, the
I think what
extension.
we've said in the past is reflective tape for even the winter stuff.
Whatever, I'm
pretty
not
sure
good.
that's what we came up with. You, go ahead.
So the reflective tape is good for the winter because things tend to have headlights on them. Boats don't usually have headlights on them, so you're not going to be able to see reflective tape off a boat light generally unless they have like the huge spotlights on the front. Just mention that.
Yeah, we're getting into a slippery slope. Like you put a light at the end of a dock, people are like, you'll probably be, like everybody's going to be calling for that next, right?
Well, we need to do something to ensure some safety.
Or just encourage them to make sure their umbrella policy is up to date.
Yeah.
This is just for extensions. So it's not like you're making a blanket rule on everyone's. I mean, it does make sense that the district, if they're going to allow something to be varied from what otherwise would be a maximum at every other time, should be
well marked
day and night for the benefit of the people that aren't expecting to find a dock 400 out.
So do we amend it to say like having solar, like some solar lights at the end of it? Like, or do you want a spotlight?
Well, I think,
I think some beacons, something that needs to mark anything beyond where they would normally have a dock.
So can we just say light and see where that takes us?
Sure.
I'm just agreeing with Darren, so.
Sherry.
Something in the ordinance, Ordinance 5, Part 6, Subdivision 1, swimming floats, et cetera, structures surrounded by navigable water, whether floating or on posts, shall be lighted with a light visible in all directions, or have attached thereto sufficient reflectorized material so as to reflect light in all directions. Said material shall be capable of retaining 80% of its dry weather reflective signal strength when wet.
So I send them that.
So just make it conditional on abiding by that for the extension.
Yeah, so for the so the amendment, I think, or the motion would be amended to include making sure that they must be in compliance with this.
Ordinance 5 of the stipulation for reflective tape and lighting.
Yep. And is that how you want to adjust it?
Sure. Go ahead, Meredith.
Should we require that of all docks that are over 300 feet?
And so are you going to the commercial bay area now? Maybe? Although that area seems like it's a little different because, something like this is almost like a random structure sticking out, whereas commercial bay, those are
different.
I think different.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And Sherry, are you comfortable with the motion at the moment? Okay. Okay. Any further discussion?
I'm becoming less comfortable with this one just because it's so different than the docks around it. And I wonder, how far does this go? If somebody brings in a boat with a draft of 5 feet, are we going to say, well, sure, go 500 feet out?
I think it really depends on the part of the lake. I think that dock to the north of them, like if you look at where they're at and we look at where things are going to be, because this is just a picture of 3 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is Google Maps because my dock's way different, I can tell. And it's like that looks like that dock to the north of them. Like they have a kind of a mark how long they think it's going to be. I think it's going to be pretty similar.
And if they erect it, and it's way different than everybody else, I'm sure that will draw public comment.
Yep.
And the nice thing is we're giving people some time to live with it before the public hearing. Yep. Okay, so we have motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Okay, and then Sherry will just have to get the public hearing into the June meeting. Okay, any questions for Chris? Okay, moving on to the Lake Education Committee. Scott.
Yeah, we had, the Laker just arrived in my mail today, and it has our 4-page insert that looks quite nice. And separate from that, there are portfolios and mugshots of all of us. And, you know, and Deb always does a great job in writing this kind of stuff. So we're pretty pleased with that. The next thing coming up that we might need some discussion here is the June 15th, Saturday, 8 to noon, is our summer lake cleanup. And we've been discussing a little bit through email, like, well, how do we organize this? We would probably have an area like we did at the winter cleanup, where we would invite the board to show up. We also have the sailing club. We want to assign them an area. And as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of arbitrary. And the last thing is that, and maybe I can get some feedback from you here, is that Alan has been talking to a dive club.
School.
And they want to participate, which gives us the possibility of bringing in some really interesting stuff. They need a little bit of guidance from us. I would think we would, I assume they have a boat, right? That they launch their divers from.
Yeah, I can fill in a little bit. This discussion started, of course, when we had the ice diving on the lake, when they had the little winter fest, and they loved the lake and want to come back, and so it was a big hit. And so I'm told from this diving school operator that White Bear is not a very popular lake for divers per se in the summertime because of obviously the use here. You know, it's a very active lake, and there's a lot of folks that go fast. They've got skiers. They've got a lot of things that make divers a little nervous. And so that's one reason there aren't a lot of good places to put in, and specifically there aren't any platforms, which I guess is kind of a critical thing for a lot of divers, to have a marked platform out to work off of. And so you could take places like Square Lake, where they do have a couple of different platforms to work with, and obviously a lot less square footage of lake, so a lot less activity. But that said, there are people who love to take advantage of opportunities like this, and so they'll certainly put the word out for all the folks that are associated with that school to come and participate in the cleanup. They would like to have an area designated as opposed to just sending their people out everywhere, you know, because if they're going to have a group go down in a certain area, they're going to put out a marker, a diving buoy, if you've ever seen the red with the white stripe, so that people know to avoid that area. And so Scott mentioned, and I thought was a pretty good idea, if we're going to get participation from the sheriff's patrol, it'd be nice to have a sheriff's boat. We know that everyone's going to avoid the sheriff's boat, so if the divers are there and the sheriff's just there for a little while, letting them work a little area of the lake, that would be ideal for them, and they'll figure out how to get out there at that point. So
They would probably, I suggested, we're doing this from 8 to noon. They should probably show up by 8, you know, before the real heavy traffic gets in. If we could arrange the sheriff boat to be out there. We would also want to suggest an access point that they should use. And I don't know if Matoska's best or Ramsey Beach. since I don't launch boats on there, take whatever, advice you may have on that. See what else. We can arrange to have press publications, have their photographer out there. We can maybe have our board choose a cleanup site at the same place where they're launching, so we can talk to them, we can see when they come in, take our own pictures if the press won't. Then finally, like where in the lake do we want them to focus on? I'm guessing that the most likely place to find interesting stuff is under where the ice fish houses are. If they're launching off of Matoska or Ramsey County Beach, where can we circle an area on a map where they should go? I don't know if anybody has any suggestions.
And there's two ways to approach it with divers. Either you send them out to a place like Ice House Village, right, which is in the middle of the lake, approximately, and then they dive over the boat. Or you pick a place like whatever the White Bear version of Copper Canyon is, where all those boats tie off, and just let them walk out, right? Because you're never going to get enough depth, probably, to have someone go over the side, if that makes sense. Any of you who have ever divin? Any of you who have ever dove before know that they're wearing a lot of equipment, and after a certain depth, you just walk in, or before a certain depth, and after a certain depth, then you can go over the edge of a boat. So, anyway, everyone's got some time. It doesn't have to be decided tonight. So again, it's just going to be sent out as an email to the membership to say if you want to show up. I don't know if I can have them organize it into a, hey, you're going to get 18, 28 people. Right, because everyone's busy.
Yeah, whatever advice you have for us to communicate, Alan's been doing most of the communication. But we just need to know what to tell them.
Right.
I feel the biggest bang for our buck would be Commercial Bay, both for us on shore. Was there with my family this weekend. They said, hey, everything we did in March, let's do it again, because so much trash along there. The diver's biggest bang for trash would be Commercial Bay. But if they're looking for Rolex watches and diamond rings and stuff, probably send them somewhere else.
They'd be here to clean up, and I'll just mention that if you've ever been in Commercial Bay, as a diver myself, I'm not going to reach into 4 feet of muck to try and find a pop bottle.
They're probably going to want to be somewhere deeper, so I don't know.
And a little clearer.
Yeah.
So we have some unknowns, it seems, and we have to get something concrete. One option, which I don't know if that's a good option, but I'll raise it, is, Scott rattled off a bunch of things, and that's, in the minutes. And so, I mean, it's in the tape. And so I wonder if Sherry, you could just put together a list of questions, like we need to figure out A, B, C, D, E, and then we can start figuring those things out.
Yeah, we only have like 3.5 weeks.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Since it's a White Bear event, I think it might be nice to have them on the White Bear side, so maybe somewhere near the Ordway Rock Bar in there, where it's shallow in some places. You could stand in some spots right by the rock bar, and there's probably a lot of props and things like that down there that they could find. And then we're visible from the boat launches in White Bear, or visible from the city of White Bear, and then the Conservation District could take Matoska Park or the county beach.
Yeah, I think it would help to send them someplace where we think there's going to be some debris, not the gold watches and the antiques and the things that we saw in the Laker, which was very interesting, but they're not going to be resurrecting a 100-year boat, right? This is really about the lake cleanup per se. So we should think about it from that
There's a kitchen
perspective.
sink out there somewhere.
Yeah, it'd be great to bring up an ice house. I'm guessing you'll see obviously soda containers and these things that go over, Yetis in the bottom, bicycles, you know. One of the interesting anecdotes they mentioned is they did a cleanup on Worth Lake, which is kind of the chain of lakes over in Minneapolis, and they brought up not 2, but they left the 3rd safe. So people burgle houses, steal people's safes, cut them open, and then throw the carcass into the lake. So hopefully we don't see any safes on White Bear. But anyway, the whole idea is to send them someplace where they'd be doing cleanup, not, finding gems.
Sherry, are you okay initiating those or initiating that list of questions?
Yes, I'll talk to Scott and Meredith about that,
Okay.
and yes.
And then we can discuss this, I guess, at an executive committee meeting too, and try to put some flesh to the bones.
Yeah, I think the Lake Education Committee will meet in the next week, hopefully, and get a lot of this finalized. And then you'll get an email from Sherry from us talking about what spot we've chosen for the board to clean.
It sounds like I can send out a meeting when we're going to meet. I don't know if we can meet this week yet, Friday.
I think maybe if you can both meet Friday, I can make that happen.
Okay.
If not-
It is Memorial Day weekend, so we'll be heading out
Next Tuesday, then.
next Tuesday.
Okay, so we're leaving it with the Lake Education Committee and Sherry to, I guess, come up with these things. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're participating.
Okay.
Mention those spots that Meredith brought up to them, because they're the divers, so they've probably spent some time too. And if they have any suggestions, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, good. Okay, back to Scott. and Meredith.
Okay, that's the end of my part. Social media update.
All right, so this month I'm going to promote the Laker, make a link to it as soon as it's available online. I'm going to go over some summer boating reminders, especially jet ski reminders, like the sergeant of the Water Patrol said they had problems with jet skis last year. I'm going to promote our June 15th cleanup event, lots, and I'm going to post something about our public hearing at the next meeting. And anything else you'd like me to post?
Okay, any questions for Scott and Meredith? Okay, moving on to the treasurer's report. Mike.
I have the, excuse me, you have the treasurer's report in front of you. If there are any questions on it, maybe. Otherwise, I'd like to make a motion to approve debit card purchases 2024-10 and 2024-11 and checks 4944 through 4954. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the debit card purchases and the checks. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Okay, next thing is the budget. And I'm sure you've all been waiting for this. And you have a copy of it in your packet. And I will run through the expenses. And now that we have a new slip fee approved, I'll run through the income. But let's start with the expenses. Water Patrol cost contract price is $14,000. Eurasian water milfoil treatment is budgeted at $27,000, which now that we don't always get a grant, maybe that's a pretty realistic number. The survey for Eurasian water milfoil, starry stonewort, and anything else that we pull up when we do the survey is $3,850. And I say anything else, when we do out there, the rate goes down, comes up, and it's in areas where we found milfoil before, or if there are new areas that have been found. But whatever else comes up gets recorded too. If another noxious weed or a certain type of weed comes up, they'll comment on it and make a note of it. So it's a pretty good thorough lake survey. But anyhow, that's $3,850. Then we go way down to Phragmites, which has been running about $1,000 a year. I think we're getting ahead on that a little bit. Hopefully it'll go down. The next item is Lake Education, and they have requested $3,600 for all their workings, and hopefully that'll be enough. The next is Swimmer's Itch, which has been running around $700, and so we're still at $700. The next is the buoys putting the... Nope, I got that backwards. $700 is for putting in the buoys and maintaining them. Swimmer's Itch is $750, which is it's kind of up and down over the years, but it's close to that number. Now we skip way down to administrative services and $30,000. Sherry's been bringing in some part-time help to go through everything, and there's still a lot to clean up, but I'm sure when she's done, it's going to be the most beautiful, perfect running office anywhere. 1% of that is unemployment compensation, that's $30, and we have to pay FICA taxes, and that's $22.95. Now I turn the page over, and we have Allen's Legal Services retainer fee at $12,000. We have payroll processing, financial services, no audit this in 2025, and surveyor services, possibility on dock links, not sure. We put in $700 just to be safe. That total comes to, all those things total up to $5,003. Then we go down to office rent, which is $100 a month, so that's $1,200. Then the website is going to be refurbished. I don't know, Scott, do you want to mention anything, or Sherry, on that? What the plan is?
The plan will be developed at the end of this year when I have time to look at that, but I talked with Wirebuilt, who said that they could give us a basic rework on our website for under $2,000. I will have you have input as well as when we get to that about what we might want to see.
Okay, she gave a quote of $1,680 for pretty much everything that she thought could possibly be done. So that's that number. Info system software, occasionally there's some updates, license fees, that kind of thing, and it's about it's been running, well, it was $336 in actual expenditures previous years. Okay, so we put in $400. Very tight number. It's a very tight budget. Office supplies, we're going to need some letterheads and that type of stuff. Excuse me, office supplies are like ink for the printer and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of paperwork going out here, so $300 is probably a conservative bid on that. Stationery supplies, we need letterheads, and I think we're good on envelopes and everything, but that's pricey stuff, so it's $200 there. We have copy costs are a little unknown. We put in $100. We've been pretty frugal on the copy costs. Telephone services, based on what we've been paying, will be about $395. Again, I've skipped a line here. I'm trying to read across without measuring it. I'm sorry, $395 is postage costs. It's estimated postage costs. The next one is telephone costs, and based on the new telephone system, it should be about $540, but we had already put in $550, so we didn't, for $10, we didn't change all the numbers on here. Then we go down to Minnesota City's membership fee, Minnesota Lakes membership fee, $2,300. Then we go down to miscellaneous operating expenses, board nameplates. If we have any turnover, I doubt it, but who knows what comes up. $200. And cable cost is $50 a month, 12 months. We really only have them for 11 months, but you never know. Could have an extra month in there. $600 right on the button. So all of our expenses come to $110,000 and $53. The zero down there means no deficit spending. Now, if we flip up to the top, again, we've got in the yellow estimated revenue at 100 per slip, but that didn't happen. Estimated revenue at 125 per slip, where it should be, gives us, I want to make this as clear as possible. Okay, the increase in slip fees gives us $69,762. Non-commercial fees that were not raised or touched, $4,140. So slip fees together is $73,902, and you'll see that number under the $125 slip fee, the third number down. The number above that, the $1,800, is a license application fee, the $60 we get from everybody and everything, and that's $1,840. The number, that $880, is interest income on our CD. So that's all the income that we produce. The $33,431 is what we would assess the city. The last time we assessed the city, if you go backwards to the 24 estimate revenue, was $27,779. So we're raising it, not quite $6,000. The year before that, in 2023, we assessed them $45,841. So you can see we deficit spent for this year. Now we've raised the slip fees for 2025, and it's keeping what the cities have to pay pretty much in line, keeps it down. So I think we're trying to do a good job there. Next month, I will have what the cities have to pay. If anybody is curious on what percentage they pay of the $33,431, I can give you those numbers now, or you can wait till next month.
Next month's fine by me.
Nobody's curious? Okay.
Mike and I will be talking with the city council on June 11th, so.
City of White Bear pays 47.2%.
Yeah.
The rest of the other communities pay 53%.
Yeah. Since the city gives the largest portion, they seem to be most concerned.
Yeah. What the heck? Township pays 25%. Mattavita pays 18.6%. Delwood pays 6.7%. And Birchwood pays 2.5%. That's based on tax capacity. In other words, the value of all the land and everything and all the structures in the community. Tax capacity, it's called. So,
Mark?
Yeah. Do you have a projection for the cash balance at the end of this year? So next year, we're planning a balanced budget. This year, we're doing deficit spending, and it looks like we're going to have our actual will be bigger than the budget.
Actual, if I understand you, is as of May, which has all the fees that everybody paid in. Let's go back to January. January, the fund balance, the actual fund balance, $229,610. Now we're going to deficit spend for sure $61,000, and then on top of that, what we're going to be short for milfoil we could be deficit spending $70,000.
So we could end the year at 162. And what's our target for reserve?
1.5 to 2 times the budget.
So 1.5 would be
165.
165.
Mhm.
So what did I say?
Yep, you're right there.
232 minus 70.
Yeah, I'm guessing 70.
160. So we'd be a little bit below our target.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I'm not comfortable being that low, but, you know, I think we have a good budget as far as what the numbers are. It's this year that we're deficit spending, the 24. This is 2025 is going to be really good shape. 2024, we're going to deficit spend some.
So one thing left out is lake management plan. Would we save that for 2026?
That would be a good idea. I mean, it wasn't mentioned when I asked for numbers, lake education or wherever it would come from. So I didn't put it in there. And I don't know what it would be. But we can budget, we can put it in the 2026.
What budget would it come from if we add it into 2026? What committee needs to say?
2026? What item would it be under?
Yeah, where would it come from? What committee needs to start
Well,
thinking about that?
I kind of think like lake education, it's kind of that type of thing, but if you want a separate line item, I have no problem, you know. We can make it work anyway.
There is a separate line item.
There may be, okay, there is a line item for lake management.
Yep.
6070 is the account number, lake management. That would be,
And it's listed under LLRC, but
we do have lake use study also, so yeah, I guess it would be under lake management.
But the LLRC is an active lake level resolution committee, so we'd find somewhere else, or, you know, I mean, not that that's that critical. You know, one thing I think about is, so we're doing this study this year in 2024. We're going to get the results. We're going to analyze those results, look them over. We're going to develop a scope in 2025, I would assume, for a lake management plan. And so having the dollars budgeted in 2026 seems like that would be okay. Because we probably wouldn't be prepared to spend that money. You know, we have to go out and get proposals for services and this kind of thing. And all of that could occur in 2025 if we wanted. Alan?
And if you're plotting for 2025, it might make sense to put some money in there, and it may affect your levy against the cities, but if you start saving now, it's going to be a lot less dramatic when you actually commission a management plan in, say, 26 or 27, because we don't even have an idea what it would cost, but having 10, 15, 20 grand lying around would be probably pretty prudent. In other words, zeroing it this year for next year's budget seems not very wise, since we know this is coming a few years out.
Okay, so between now and June, we should figure out.
I'll have the complete budget with all the numbers, all the income numbers and all the cost numbers for the cities in June for an approval.
Does anybody want to offer a starting point for this lake management to get some money in the 2025 budget? Or do we want to just wait and do that in June? Or
15 grand.
Okay.
Looking for a number.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, I was going to suggest flat to this year. So, you know, if this is a 3-year process, maybe it's 30,000 this year for the study, and maybe the lake management is twice that. I don't know, maybe it's 60,000.
Second, just kidding.
But what if we?
30,000 over 3 years would get us a lake management plan. 30,000 a year.
Plan, I don't think we have quite what you need for that.
Well, what if we just seeded it with 10 grand, something like that?
To start.
Yeah, and it is just a start.
With the study in hand, going to a planning agency of engineers and like-minded people, I would think that 30 grand would buy you a nice plan.
So do you want to try 10,000 in that 60, 70?
Paying $30,000 for a lake use study, right?
I can for 2025. Then the amount for the cities, because we can't deficit spend it, we're setting it aside.
Yep, it's
So
going
the
to-
cities' allotments then would go up $10,000.
True.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to spend it, so ultimately it'll wind up in our cash reserve above our target.
Not if you've budgeted it.
It's kind of a different way of doing it. Budgeting it, not to spend it.
You know, just accumulating it.
It's not a cash reserve if it's in a line item for future purpose.
Well, Mike, would you figure it with the 10,000 in that line item, and then we can have further discussion at our June meeting?
Okay.
Sorry.
There have been years in the past here, 21 and 22,
Yeah.
where there were surplus.
Yeah.
There's precedent.
There have been surpluses, but there haven't been much in surpluses.
58,000 in 21, 41,000 in 22.
Well, how about we look at it with the 10,000, and we can make a final decision on that in June.
So we put 10,000 in there.
60, 70, yeah, for 2025.
Then our budget is 130,000. No, excuse me, 120,000 and $53. And the community assessment will be $43,431. So now we're back up to what we were trying to get down. Okay. I didn't gain anything, did I?
You got $125 to slip, though.
Yeah, that does help. Okay, any further discussion on the budget at the moment? Okay, so again, we'll consider this, and we will approve something at our June meeting.
Perhaps we could look at the last cost of the management study, knowing that it's going to be a lot more expensive than it was 25 years ago, but give us some idea.
Yeah. Okay, good, Mike?
Yeah, that's what the board wants. That's what we do.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Mike? Okay, we'll move on to the board council report. Alan?
Chair, obviously talked about what we talked about before. Pretty slow month from the DNR, so not much activity yet. Obviously, the sheriff's supplemental has been done, so that's good. The ordinance regarding speeding should go live by June 1st, so that'll be enforced. Still waiting on who to actually direct that to so that the input people can get it inputted. But the change order is essentially ready to go. Again, by the time they hit the water with that, that should be available to them. We don't see much in terms of speeders that actually get cited, so many of them historically get warnings. You heard the sheriff's deputies, what they're out there doing is giving warnings for the bow riders and for the nav lights and for the jackets. They don't want to go out there and have people's experience on our lake be bad, right? Hey, all I got was this stinking ticket right when I went to White Bear. So a lot of what they're doing is education, but at least it'll be available to them, and so they can write that up as a warning. So anyway, it's late, and that's all I really had for this month anyway. So any questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. So moving on to announcements, adjournment. Sherry, do you have anything?
Just a couple things. One is that I received several copies of the annual report from the Minnesota Lakes and Rivers Association, of which we are a member. So if you'd like to see a hard copy of this, please take one. And just that our next board meeting is Tuesday, June 18th.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion?
Before we adjourn, what's the scoop on the Blandings turtles?
I think Luke just handed that out because that's something that's going to be included in the EAW requirements. They'll have to make sure all the workers on the site are aware of this blanding turtle.
Has anyone ever found them here?
I don't know that, but I think that the DNR has identified, or someone has identified them as being potentially here.
Potentially here.
If it's possible, they have to have them on hand so that if a contractor runs into them, if you see something, say something. So it's an advisory.
Oh, I was just kind of curious. They're in your area. Better watch out.
Okay, motion and second to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.